Revelations continue, chapter 16. Folks, we're getting there soon. Revelations will be finished, and then I'm going to have to see where the Lord wants us to go next. But today is a very special message. It's the culmination, really, of all the wrath of God in these bowls. So it's about the 7 bowls of the wrath of God. And I'm starting at Revelation 16, verse 1. And I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the 7 angels, "Go and pour out the 7 bowls of the wrath of God into the earth." And the first went and poured out his bowl into the earth, and it became a noisome. Now, you know, we read these words, noisome. What does noisome mean? We need to look up some of these things in the dictionary so that we don't just use a word and we don't really know what it means. It means an extremely offensive smell. Now, I want you to, for a moment, just think about what is the worst smell you've ever smelled. I don't know about you guys, but I've smelled some bad stuff. It can get much worse than the toilet, my friend. I worked on septic tanks. That's 1,000 times what you smelt in the toilet. I'm talking about extremely offensive smell, especially rotting flesh, where your stomach just goes, and you're not trying to do it. You're trying to stop it, but it just happens. Folks, it says, and the first went and poured out his bowl into the earth, and it became noisome and grievous. Now, grievous is a bit easier to understand. I think we understand grievous, but even so, grievous means very severe, okay? Very severe. Sore upon the men that had the mark of the beast and that worshipped his image. I don't know how that's going to happen. Maybe they're going to inject a chip into you and it's going to fester. I don't know. Maybe it's just God allows it to fester. But if you take the mark of the beast during the tribulation, you're going to be what I would call a stinky, okay? But they're all going to stink, so they're going to belong to the stinky club, okay? It's going to be really gross. They're going to come together and they're going to have food because they've got the chip. They can buy food. Let's have a party. But it's going to be a stinky party, okay? Verse 3, and the second angel poured out his bowl into the sea, and it became blood as of dead man. And every living soul died. Okay, now that's a bit difficult to understand. Every living soul died. So is that the end right there? So my brain says to me, no, because I'm reading about further bowls and people suffering. So when it's saying every living soul died, I need to go and read that in the Greek, I think, just to understand. And the Greek word used that they translate into soul means breathing animal, okay? So it's not every person, it's every breathing animal. And then it goes on to say, even the things that were in the sea. That means fish, because fish have gills. And that's why they used a word that differentiated from a fish, because even the mammals, the seals, the dolphins, all these things are going to die. But it's one thing to turn the sea into blood. Rona worked at blood banks. So I know quite a lot about blood. If you need to know anything about blood, just come and ask me. Or you can ask her. I mean, that's first hand. I'm only second hand. But one of the things they would do in Rona's classes when she was studying about blood is they would take a pint of blood and spill it on the floor so that you can see what a pint of blood looks like when it's lying on the floor. Because, you know, most of us that don't have a medical background, You see one thimble of blood and you say, oh, the person's going to bleed out. They're about to die. No, if you see a pint of blood on the floor, it's a hang of a lot of blood. There's one or two nurses nodding their heads because they've seen this, okay? So I don't think any of you have probably ever, except the nurses, seen really a pint of blood. That's a lot of blood. But so Rona used to work with the stuff and she would cross-match it and all. But now the whole sea is going to become blood, but not regular blood, blood as of a dead man. What, have you seen a dead man's blood? It's congealed. It's also stinky, okay? It attracts flies. It's horrible. It's not nice. And the third angel poured out his bowl into the rivers and the fountains of the waters, and it too became blood. Folks, there's not a lot left to drink. I suppose you can drink Coca-Cola or Fanta, but there be no water left to drink. And I heard the angel of the water saying, who knew? Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. And I heard the angels of the water saying, and then I put a note into the Bible there, because it says angels of the water. Who knew there was an angel in charge of the waters? You know, the waters, the world is saying, oh, we're going to flood the whole world because of global warming. No, there's an angel in charge of the waters. And he says, you can stop here today and you can stop there tomorrow. The sea doesn't just do as it pleases. There's an angel in charge. And it goes on to say, righteous art thou, who art and who wast, thou Holy One, because thou didst thus judge. So this tragedy, for want of a better word, this pouring out of the wrath of God is so severe that even the angels stop to think about it. And then they look at it and they say, God, no, you are righteous for pouring this out. As bad as it is, because of the wickedness of the world, obviously. For they poured out the blood of saints and prophets, and blood hast thou given them to drink. They are worthy. Normally the Bible says, he's worthy, or God is worthy, or Jesus. Now it says, these people are worthy. What are they worthy for? They're worthy to drink blood, okay? Because of their wickedness. Verse 7, and I heard the altar saying, yea, O Lord God, the Almighty, true and righteous are thy judgments. And the fourth angel poured out his bowl upon the sun, and it was given unto it to scorch men with fire. Again, the sun doesn't just do what it pleases. You know, sometimes you can get a burst of sun ray that can cause some trouble on the earth, like radio frequencies and all sorts of things can go upside down because there was an explosion on the sun. But generally, basically, the sun behaves itself, and it just warms us beautifully in the day. And sometimes in winter, we don't see enough of it, and then we get a bit cold. But the sun also has an angel that is just keeping watch over it. Just do what you're supposed to do. But here, the sun is going to be let loose. You want to have some major eruptions, just burst forth heat onto the earth and sizzle these people. Any of you ever been bright red from lying in the sun, fallen asleep on the beach or whatever, and you come home and you're bright red and you've got to get into a bath, and what do they put in the bath? I don't know, vinegar or I don't know, so something, because everybody's going to look like that. If you go out into the sun, you're going to be sizzled. And the air conditioners are going to have to be working round the clock because it's going to get very, very hot. So men were scorched with great heat, and they blasphemed the name of God, who hath power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. By now, if I was going through this, I would a long time ago called out to God for mercy. But it's just the wicked heart of man that even as God is pouring out these bowls of judgment, they curse him. I mean, how dumb can you get and still breathe? As if it's not bad enough. It's just going to get a whole lot worse. And the fifth poured out his bowl upon the throne of the beasts, and his kingdom was darkened. So I want to give that to you in another translation, because it's his kingdom was darkened. What does that quite mean? Another translation says his kingdom was full of darkness. He's going to become even more evil than he already is. And they gnawed their tongue in pain. That is speaking about Satan and the Antichrist and the false prophet. They're going to gnaw their tongue in pain. You know, David's got toothache. He did very well this morning. He looks a bit better, because I saw him in the weekend. He had a big knob here on the side of his face. It's going down. It's still there, but it's going down. But my brother had a tooth extracted in the week, and he was telling me his tongue just can't stay away there. Your tongue just wants to go to where the trouble is. These people, they're going to bite on their tongue to try and bring themselves some relief. Folks, this is horrific stuff I'm talking about. Real encouraging for church, isn't it? Don't you think? Aren't you feeling really encouraged right about now? And they blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and they repented not of their works. And the sixth poured out his bowl upon the great river, the river Euphrates. Shame, poor river. It's not the biggest river in the world. The Amazon is much longer. And even in Africa, we have the Nile. But this poor river, the river Euphrates, it's going to dry up. It's 2,800 kilometers long, and it crosses Western Asia. And the Bible says, and the water thereof was dried up, that they might be made ready for the kings that come from the sun rising. What does that mean, the kings that come from the sun rising? I think most of you went to Boy Scouts, and you know that the sun rises in the east, okay? And so when it says it's from the sun rising, the enemies of Israel are going to come from the east. In other words, they're going to attack Israel via Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, all those nations. And this river is in the way. In the military, we had to drive through rivers to get across, and even military vehicles get stuck in rivers, okay? And then you've got to tow it out, and it becomes a whole big schlep. But if the river dries up, it's just perfect for an army. Just what they need, a nice riverbed to drive along and cross over. Verse 13, and I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits, as it were frogs. Who knew that a demon looked like a frog, okay? For those of you that love frogs. For they are spirits of demons, working signs, which go forth unto the kings of the whole world, to gather them together unto the war of the great day of God the Almighty. Verse 15, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And they gathered them together into the place which is called in Hebrew, Ha-Mageddon. So let me tell you about Mageddon or Megiddo or Ha-Mageddon. It's got many different names, this valley. Many battles have been fought there. If you go read in the Old Testament, this will not be the first battle that was fought there. I think a lot of you have heard about Deborah in the Bible, okay, and how she led all the men. It took one lady to lead all the men to war. And she didn't want to go. She said, no, I'm a woman. You guys go fight the battle. And they said, no, we're not going unless you go with us. But she was a great prophet. And so Deborah led the Israeli army to war, and it was exactly here at Ha-Magedon. Okay? And another battle that happened there was Saul. Saul died on the hills on the side of that valley. There's many more, but that's enough for today. And folks, that is 6 bowls of the wrath of God. You see, we have a wrong understanding of who God is. We have an imbalanced understanding of who God is. We think he's like our buddy, but when you start to read these 6 bowls of the wrath of God on mankind for the way that they've lived, for how they rejected him, for how they disregarded him, when he gave them so much, he gave us Jesus, his son, who died on the cross for us, and we still just take him lightly. We run to God when we're in a panic. Oh God, I need this, I need that. But other than that, we disregard him. We disregard his laws and his rules and the things that he's taught in the word. We take it lightly. And still, when he sends these 6 bowls, that people just curse him even more. They just get angry at him. But then comes the 7th bowl. And I want to say in vernacular language, it's the mother of all bowls, okay? Verse 17, and the 7th poured out his bowl upon the air, and there came forth a great voice out of the temple from the throne, saying, it is done. That's it. It's over. And remember, I've been teaching you as we're going through Revelations to always look out for Jesus in every chapter of Revelations. And I believe this great voice is the voice of Jesus. He said, it is done once before on the cross. And now he's saying, well, now it's really done. Verse 18, and there was lightnings and voices and thunders. And you see, when you read something like that, lightning, voices, and thunders, those 3 things don't really go together. Voices and lightning and thunders. But I've heard of this somewhere in the Bible before. Mount Sinai, there was lightning, voices, and thunders. It was at the marriage proposal between God and the Jewish people, the cutting of a covenant, that there was lightning, voices, and thunders. And now, when Jesus says it's done, there's lightning, voices, and thunders. It's something similar to what happened in the upper room as well. And the Bible carries on to say, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since there were men upon the earth. There's been some bad earthquakes, folks. Fortunately, here in the Western Cape, we only had really one tremor. Came from Tilbach when I was a child, and our cupboards were vibrating. Some of you too young to remember that. But there are a few old bullets here like me that can clearly remember what it's like to go through an earth tremor. That wasn't even an earthquake. It was an earth tremor, okay? And this is the greatest earthquake ever known to mankind. And I told you this last bowl is the mother of all bowls. And the main thing is the earthquake that is so mighty. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations. Now, when I read that, why doesn't it just say, and the cities? Or why doesn't it just say, and the nations? No, it says, the cities of the nations fell. I think that probably refers to capital cities, because there's a reason why it's explaining it like that. And Babylon the Great was remembered in the sight of God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away. Robben Island will be gone. It says every island fled away. I'm so glad I won't be here to see it. I'm going up in the rapture, folks. If you want to stay behind to see what it looks like with no islands, you're welcome. And the mountains were not found. Folks, we have a very famous mountain on our doorstep that we love to look up at. Whenever I drive around here in the early morning, I look at the beauty of Table Mountain. Table Mountain will be flat, gone. Robben Island will be gone. All around the world, every mountain in the earth will be gone, flat. This is a serious, serious earthquake. And then verse 21, and great hail, every stone about the weight of a talent. Now, talent is, biblically speaking, I wasn't there. I know it looks like I was there nearly 2,000 years ago, but I wasn't there. So I can only take what the Bible dictionary says is that it's about 34 kilograms, between 34 and 50 kilograms, these great hail that are going to fall on people. And it cometh down out of heaven upon men, and men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof is exceedingly great. Sorry for you, even if your car's in the garage, hail that size will go right through your garage roof, right through your car, okay? If you have a tiled roof like me, that piece of hail is going right through the concrete floor, I reckon. That's a serious piece of hail. For the plague thereof is exceeding great. Full stop. It's the end of the 7 bowls of the wrath of God. Now, in the coming weeks, it's going to turn slightly. I'm not saying that you won't still hash over some of the stuff, but it's the turn. It's finished. The wrath of God is poured out. So I want to just explain Revelations a bit like this. You know, there is 4 Gospels in the Bible: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Why did God do that? He could have just had the book of Matthew or just the book of John. But he gave 4 different perspectives of the same events, because he wanted us to have as full a picture as possible of what happened. And he's done exactly the same thing in the book of Revelations. And that's why people struggle to put it all together, because I've been speaking about the Battle of Armageddon a few times already. It's come up. And now here it comes up again for the 4th time. It's just like the Gospels. John has actually seen this revelation of the book of Revelations from 4 different angles. And the timelines are different on all of those revelations. Some of them start earlier and some of them start later. But this one, this revelation of the end of time is quite a short one, and it finishes with the Battle of Armageddon. And so if you look back and you can start to piece it together, oh, but we've done Armageddon already and now we're doing it again, but it's a little different. It's not different, it's just from a different angle, because God wanted you to have the fullest picture possible. And that's also why there's quite a bit of overlap in the book of Revelations. It does overlap because of the 4 different viewpoints. And it does make it a bit difficult to understand the timeline. But folks, today my warning to you, keep alert, keep awake. The bridegroom is coming, and you and I can be spared these terrible judgments. Matthew 24 is a view of the end times, but directly after that, in red, we read Jesus' own words in Matthew 25, and I'm going to read them to you. But just before I do that, I want to say that everything that I've read here is going to happen in this earth. And if you turn your back on Jesus, you're a born-again, believing child of God, and you just, this is not for me anymore, and you go off and you serve the world and you serve the devil, you will not go up in the rapture, and you will face every one of these bowls. But even worse than that, in a sense, is your family member that is not here today, your husband or wife, and I'm not saying just because they're not here, they could be at another church loving Jesus, that's wonderful, okay? But I'm talking about people that don't want to serve God, people that refuse to bow their knee to the name of Jesus. Your loved ones, your children that won't serve God, my children that don't want to serve God, your cousins, your nephews, your nieces, your family, people that are precious to you. This is what Jesus has arranged for their end. This is their lot. Your mothers and fathers that, we know about Jesus, but we don't want to be bothered with him. Another time. It's not an opportune time. Let's leave it for another time. This has been specially prepared, not by some demon in hell. It's been specially prepared by Jesus himself. That Jesus that I've been telling you about, that awesome one that loves us, that gave he's prepared this for your family members. And folks, I'm not trying to be nasty to anybody. I'm trying to stir you up to rescue them. Because I can't preach this message to them. They won't come and hear me. But you can. You can tell them there's a judgment coming on this earth. And you better be ready. So I said I'm going to read Matthew 25. It's the parable of the 10 virgins. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 bridesmaids who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The 5 who were foolish didn't take enough olive oil for their lamps, but the other 5 were wise enough to take extra oil. When the bridegroom was delayed, they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight they were roused by the shout, "Look, the bridegroom is coming. Come out and meet him." All the bridesmaids got up and prepared their lamps. Then the 5 foolish ones asked the others, "Please give us some of your oil, because our lamps are going out." But the others replied, "We don't have enough for all of us. Go to a shop and buy some for yourselves." But while they were gone to buy oil, the bridegroom came. Then those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was locked. Later, when the other 5 bridesmaids returned, they stood outside calling, "Lord, Lord, open the door for us." But he called back, "Believe me, I don't know you. So you too must keep watch, for you do not know the day or the hour of my return." Is there sufficient oil in your lamp? If it was to come tonight, there was a shout, "The Lord is returning." Will you be one of those that will go in the rapture to be with Jesus? Or will you be left behind and face the wrath of a righteous God? I don't want to be left behind. I want to publicly say before all of you, when Jesus comes, I want to be found serving him with all my heart, with all my life, with all my being. And I charge you to take this seriously, to think of your family that don't want to be bothered with God. Somehow you have to get them in. Somehow you have to tell them that as loving as Jesus is, it's him that will pour out his wrath. And there's serious times ahead.